Well, Aries, we live in, I was going to say interesting times, but I think the more appropriate word is bizarre. Let me just start this ball rolling, and you'll notice down here that at the beginning of this month, April 2020, I'm sure a year no one's going to forget, Moon and Rahu, or what we call the ascending node, start the month off down here in this fourth house of your horoscope, which of course is your domestic sphere. And so there's going to be a lot of focus there, and possibly an over-emotional reaction to what's happening on the home front. I say that because this north node and also the south node have a propensity to exaggerate and amplify the planet that they are with. And so we see that amplification takes place here in the sign of Cancer, which happens to be the fourth house of your horoscope. I also didn't have a chance to mention this opposition as the moon was passing Pluto. That would intensify probably around the 2nd and 3rd of the month. And then around the 4th and 5th, you had this Mars-Saturn opposition that would consequently make you a little bit precariously vulnerable to health issues here around the 6th, 7th, as the moon is transiting 6th house. Then here the relationship area of your horoscope around the 8th of the month is strongly focused on the relationships. There it is, there on the 8th, as the moon moves into this opposition of the sun. And of course, when the moon is that full, it's going to really bring a whole lot of matters to light. Being the fourth ruler, here, the ruler of this fourth sector, it definitely has to do with your feelings, how you approach your relationships. You know, under those circumstances, you may not even engage in relationship. It just could be how you're feeling about the relationship. And then, of course, that's followed by the 2-day transit up until the 11th here of the moon in your 8th house of intimacy. Then there's an opposition to Venus. This can sometimes show over-sentimentality or an over-concern over finances, because Venus is the ruler of the 2nd house. You'll notice also that in that first week, Venus moves into the 3rd house. That's a nice counterbalance to some of the situations you've been going through. The 3rd house has to do with your mentality. It also has to do with music, communication, short journeys, and of course you have to be a little bit careful about that. But I think the important one here is the 11th house, where we see right now Saturn having, for the first 2.5 years, moved into the tropical position of Aquarius. There we see Mars also having passed over Saturn. I'm not going to go over that we know all about the frustrations there. But all of this stuff here, this stellium that we have been discussing for some time, the Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, you see the fast-moving moon making contact there, 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th. That's the work sector, and then the social sector, or the, friendships. You may have to deal with some friends at this time. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll have conflicts with them, but they could be going through conflicts. They could be going through their own sorts of problems. And because the moon is part of your emotional state, that's tied in with your social connections. It also has to do with your siblings, brothers and sisters. The 18th is interesting because it's a very strong spiritual connotation here. Each month we're going to have to stop that dog, Yana, please. Can you take them downstairs? Sorry, folks. It really breaks my concentration. Can you go and take them downstairs? The moon and Neptune is this compassionate, spiritual, giving combination, very idealistic. And it's interesting that it follows up on this conjunction with this Saturn and Mars in the 11th house. Could it be that you're going to be the shoulder that everyone needs to cry on? What I am looking at here is the transit of the sun around the 20th of April into your finance sector. And this is interesting. For the first time in about a year, there's going to be a contact here with disruptive Uranus. Moon makes contact on the 22nd with Mercury. And you see here it brings the energy of that mercurial vibe here into your second house of finance after the 22nd. And that sets you up for a new moon here, right next to the Sun and Uranus. So there's a whole new approach to your finances taking place here. The Sun is your creative planet, rules the 5th house of Leo. You see here the new moon on 23, 24, right next to Uranus. So some of the new sorts of approaches you're taking to your finance, your value system, your income, may well be happening very, very suddenly. Okay, we know what's happening with coronavirus, all that sort of stuff. You may think you have a plan for this, but just when you thought you'd had it locked down, bang, something else comes out left of field. I might add up here, I don't want you to feel that this is a negative combination. The 11th house is very good for all the planets, even these so-called malefic planets. Saturn is definitely the most difficult planet for you. Mars is a malefic, but it rules your sun sign. So it is going to generally give you some pretty good results here. And you can expect, as I said, the unexpected. Some unexpected benefits from the positioning of these two planets. Get into some music this month. Pardon me. The 3rd house is notorious for song, entertainment. I said communication, but actually getting yourself into a creative space and offsetting some of these heavy sorts of circumstances we're all experiencing at this time. So that's your month. You should subscribe. Pop into astrology.com.au. We've set up the new weekly forecast for you now. This year I wanted to give you something a little bit extra. I mean, now that you've got a little bit of extra time on your hands, why not come on over, join us there, have a look at what's happening this week, and by all means drop me a note, and I look forward to hearing from you, and of course seeing you again next month. Stay safe. Bye bye now.